I'm Tom, and this is Extreme Costumes. And today, we're going to talk to you about our latest project. We are making the Mandalorian TV show. And in that, the first character we're going to make is the Blurrg. Well, the Blurrg is the dinosaur that Mando learns how to ride in Season 1. I love Mando, but it's the most popular show on the planet. There's gonna be a lot of Mandalorians. So how do we stand out as Extreme Costumes? Well, I thought to myself, let's do something that I don't think anyone else is doing. This is Barbara the Blurrg. Now, Barbara's not the star of the show. As a matter of fact, Barbara's not even cattle. But she is going to be super big and impressive and important to the show and our cosplay. She's going to help elevate our cosplay above all the rest. Because in this cosplay, our Mandalorian's going to be 9.5 feet tall. And it's going to be 10.5 feet long. That might be the largest thing we've ever made here at Extreme Costumes. Barbara's going to have all kinds of fun gimmicks. She's going to have a flexible tongue that's going to be able to move out and lick at kids. Her jaw's going to be able to open up. She's going to be able to swallow things like frogs and small children. And this is going to be an awesome cosplay because it's going to give a realistic illusion of a dinosaur. And then we're going to mount our Mandalorian on top of it. Our performer is going to have his upper body be outside of the Blurrg as the Mandalorian, as the performer. But his real legs are going to extend through the body and actually reach these stilts right here. Just like the same set of stilts we've used in so many of our other costumes. And if you look down here, the real stilts are going to be able to flex and move just like they would regularly. And the performer's going to be able to wander around with the same level of agility that you've seen me perform at countless other Comic-Cons in the past. A fake set of legs is going to straddle the outside of the Blurrg, and that's where it's going to look like the illusion of the Mandalorian riding the Blurrg. It's not a new and innovative concept. I just hope that we're going to do a better job of it than others have. When we're done with this, we're going to have the same level of mobility that you're used to seeing from all of our creations. The tongue's going to move, the mouth is going to move, the head's going to move, the neck's going to move, the eyes are going to move, the eyelids are going to move. All over the place, there's going to be movement. Why? Because, well, that's one of the things we do well.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I work here at Extreme Costumes, and I've been helping make the Blurrg's mouth. So the teeth, we originally started with foam clay, and I sculpted a whole bunch of teeth out of foam clay and then realized that it was too squishy. Even though it hardens over time, we wanted our teeth to be a lot more sturdy than this. So we switched over to a higher density foam. I layered it, glued it with contact cement, and carved it. And then after hours and hours and hours of dremeling, we ended up with shapes like these, which I primed and I painted. They've got a whole bunch of layers of paint on them to make them look grimy and gross. And we made about 45 teeth, I believe, are in Barbara's mouth. And then we used an open cell foam to make her gums, carved out some space for all the teeth, wrapped the gums in fabric, and then Corey glued all the teeth in place, so they are securely in there. So now we can bite down on things, and the teeth won't break off, but they won't hurt anyone if we grab onto an arm or anything. So we started off with the frame of the head that Corey made, and then he mapped out all of the outer face stuff. And then him and I worked together to pattern and create the inside cavity of the mouth. And then we added some ridges with foam and textured those on the top and bottom, and then we skinned the whole thing in this fabric. And then it got primed, and all of it got the same treatment as the teeth, just in pinks and reds and browns. And then all of it got a gloss coat, so it has that gross, wet inside of the mouth look. And the same thing with the tongue. This is all open cell foam skinned with fabric, and just layers and layers of paint, and then a lot of gloss.
It's your boy, Corey. I'm going to show you some of the things that I helped do on this build. Come on out. So the design process on this was a challenge, to say the least. One of the things that was surprising about the Blurrg in general was the fact that there's very little consistency throughout the Star Wars universe. Very little had been done for these until the Mandalorian series. They had shown up in other literature, they had showed up in Clone Wars, But it wasn't until the actual TV show that we actually saw a really good, full-fledged Blurrg. I quite enjoy taking things that I don't have a physical model on and building it up from scratch. So we had very little photos to work on for most of this build thus far. We had only the screenshots that I could pull from the show itself and any behind-the-scenes special effects things that I could find or scour across the internet. Luckily, a few weeks ago, Hot Toys released a lovely scale model of the Blurrg and the Mandalorian. This was actually very useful for us because I could get angles of the Blurrg that we couldn't get from the actual screenshots that we had in the show. Taking the process of gauging how big to make Barbara here was based on a lot of size constraints that we have to work on for both shipping and performance. Right now, Barbara is about 5.5 feet tall and is going to be about 10.5 feet long, give or take the tongue. I decided to go with a lightweight plastic tubing called PEX. It's very similar to PVC, but it's light and flexible. So I took that PEX tubing and I built this lovely frame inside of Barbara. So it almost gives a nice wire frame, but it's very easy to work with, it's very forgiving, and surprisingly very affordable. This gave me a rough structure that I could then layer a thin layer of soft EVA foam, and then our open cell foam on top of that, which gave Barbara her lovely little face over there. So in this build, we had to use a lot of different types and densities of foams. We have both closed cell EVA and an open cell foam. So here on Barbara, I gave her a lovely pedicure of our finest closed cell foam. This is a 600 density, which is close to a 50% denser foam than your standard EVA. We made an in-house mixture to give Barbara a lovely nail polish enamel coating. That's also going to help with a lot of the abrasion that's going to happen on this. Because let me tell you, this is going to take a beating. Here on Barbara's leg, I used two different thicknesses of open cell foam. We have a 1 inch, which is giving us our rough shape, and then I cut out and replace the back of the knee with a 1/2 inch open cell foam. This makes it compress a lot easier. By using a soldering iron, I was able to carve in lines, and this kind of helps an accordion action in the back of the knee. We also use the same technique to put some rough creases. We'll be adding a lot of texture in the final layers of our skinning process. Now for the skin is something that I am very excited to add on top of this once it's all done. We've already gone through a lot of different tests and a lot of different ways on how we were going to do the skinning process because there are multiple techniques. We both have to find the one that's going to work best for Barbara here, but also work best for the environment that she's going to be in. So right here is one of the tests that we did. I glued some spandex on two sides of a nice thick chunk of foam, both to see the glue's adhesion, which excelled, but to test all the texturing that we can add on top of this. And even though there's a lot of information on how to build dinosaurs and different stuff, Barbara here isn't actually a dinosaur. She's some weird alien fish toad thing. So we combine different textures and hides of different animals from elephants to rhinoceros to get the best texture that's both going to fit Barbara and fit us and our needs here at Extreme Cosplay.
It's my segment again, and I'm going to be talking about the skeleton. For me, the skeleton is always the most critical part because, well, I get excited by that, and that's traditionally one of my areas of focus. This piece here, my aluminum skirt, is capable of taking 250 pounds of weight. It should never ever have to support anywhere near that much, but I tend to try and overbuild. There was a very interesting design challenge in making this. It has to be able to allow the entire dinosaur to rest on it, but at the same time, the head must be able to hang off of it, pivot left and right, send down the controls to be able to control the tongue, control the eyes, control the smile, control the snort, and all the other fun gimmicks we have in the head. And then the whole thing has to be able to be removable. And then in the back end, we're going to have a giant tail. And the tail needs to pivot left and right and up. And at the same time, it needs to again be removable. And then in the middle of all of that, this thing then has to be able to open up. When you've got the thing on you, you have to be able to stand in a pretty wide stance. But when you're walking around, you need to be able to move your legs as far as you possibly can get them in either direction without hitting anything. And thus, you need to be able to dance and pull your legs up quickly. And this offers enough strength to support my entire body weight and still give me the full range of motion. The entire thing has to hang off my shoulders, but you can't see any of that. And then blossom off underneath with my aluminum skirt. I'm super excited to see how this is going to look when we get done with them, and you're going to see him at a local Comic-Con near you. This is our first video showing the progression of all our Mandalorian costumes. I want you to like, subscribe, and follow along on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Like and subscribe.